belief, always went to Roman Catholic schools. There's God in everything. Christ, the God consciousness, is all to do with within. All the answers are within you. What you asked is, do I believe there's something after death? I believe yes. Do I know what it is? I have no idea what it is. The story of Jesus, you can see the story of that in the Egypt with Kemet and Thoth. I can't identify with religions that were used to enslave ancestors. I think these religions are put to control masses of people. I'm just on a journey, man. Like, I sound like I know a lot, but I know very little. Just keep asking the right questions and the wrong questions, and you'll get there.
Hey, just had a conversation with a gentleman who believes in the truth being within us, some sort of a God consciousness pervading us and the nature, and finding God really in those things, in natural things. He wouldn't call himself a Buddhist, although I think that's his beliefs are probably the closest to that philosophy. I think there was also a sense in which he was resistant to the major religions because of his aversion to slavery and how religion has been used in the past to enslave people, especially people from a black background. And so I think there was a sense in which that was a natural adverse reaction, and then a return to appreciation of more, let's say, African, animistic, shamanistic types of beliefs that look for spiritual meanings in maybe within us, sort of through psychedelics, and also in things like nature. So definitely a good conversation, although a bit frustrating one. Even the man admitted himself that speaking to him must be quite frustrating, which it was, because anything I try to sort of pin against and some sort of finding some sort of common ground, something that we can go off of, something that leads us to understanding what the truth is, he would immediately bring back to this sort of just woolly notion of, well, truth is not really attainable, or truth is within us, and a truth can be whatever it is for any single person. And so I had to just at that stage really just give up, and there's not really any way forward that I could go from there if someone doesn't want to sort of have a framework of belief that leads them to an understanding of truth, or if truth is subjective. It's very little, I think, further argumentation that can be provided. But anyway, glad to have spoken to him. I'll pray for him, and hope to see him again, maybe in the park, and we can continue the conversation. But anyway, hope you liked it, and see you in the next video. God bless. Do you have any faith, belief, religion, or philosophy?
I'm in a transitional period of my life at the moment. My parents are deep in different facts of the Christian and Catholic faith. I was ordained as a youngster doing Roman Catholic Christian belief. Always went to Roman Catholic schools in the area I was in.
So it's ordained like confirmation.
Confirmation. Yeah. So I've always had a belief in something, even at a younger age. It didn't feel right. How to word it? Giving it to like the ideology of a book, and stories and parables. Because even here, like, we met in a park and we're sat here, and if we have a strong belief in God, like, there's God in everything. So, like, I feel at one and at peace, walking in nature, seeing myself in the leaves, the trees, the animals, other people. Um, you know, like I'm still on the journey. Like it's evolved quite a lot from being a 7-year-old to a 20-year-old to a 30-year-old to a 40-year-old. So I would say it's not a faith, it's a knowing. It's a believing in the consciousness that we all share together. We all are on a journey together, wherever my brother or sister has their religious background, in terms of whether they decide to be Muslim or the different factions of Christianity. At the end of it all, it's a consciousness in God and knowing that there is a higher power and knowing that there is something beyond what your lenses can comprehend. You know, I think the faith is people have faith in the return of something physical, but I think the returning of your Christ, the God consciousness, is all to do with within how you project to the world, how you treat your brother, your sister, how you interact with people around you, how you interact with yourself, how the outside world, you allow the outside world with all the materialistic things kind of guide your movements and reality, what your perspectives are, what are your morals, what are your principles. These are the important things. Do you move with love? Is yeah, that's where I'm at the minute. Because I've had some big changes in my life in terms of, I've got engaged, I'm getting married, considering having children. All of these questions and things that just weren't options for me. And I know that they are options because I allowed myself to start self-love. So it went in and it's going out.
Okay, well that sounds really, like as you said, transformative and positive.
Yeah.
So sorry, maybe with this question I might hopefully I don't dampen the mood too much, but what happens after we die? What do you think will happen after we die?
I mean, energy always transfers, doesn't it? So it's never going to be a case of its darkness. I think with death, when you hear people who have had near-death experiences, they never say that it's just nothing. Even when you dream and close your eyes and you're not conscious, there's a consciousness that comes with you not being conscious on this plane. There's so much, like we think we know. I think once you understand that what you know is a fraction of what you think you know, then you have an understanding that you know nothing. But as long as you're willing to be open to learning, then so what you asked is, do I believe there's something after death? I believe yes. Do I know what it is? I have no idea what it is, but I know that it is it has to be beyond what we consider reality here, because the reality here makes no sense in terms of how people treat each other. So yeah.
Okay, but now you mentioned some of your background and some of the maybe people around you have had different maybe faiths and beliefs, but they would say something very concrete about those questions, right? There would be a concept of, certainly in Christianity, right, a judgment at the end of our lives, and then either heaven or hell. Do you think there is such a such a destiny? You know, is there a judgment at the end of our lives?
Part of me believes that, you know, if that's what you kind of manifest for yourself in how you deal with your life, then to some aspect, yeah, you have to be, you have to have, what's the word I'm looking for? Not acknowledgement, but you'll have to answer to something about how you've chosen to live your life. You know, the Kemetans believe in Ma'at, and they believe that, you know, they put your soul and a feather on a balance, and if the life you've led, which means like if you led with a heavy heart, if you've sinned and you've mistreated people, if it's heavier than a feather, then they say that you know you failed and you're hellbound. Do I believe you're hellbound? I have no idea. I can't say that I have a kind of faith in that, not knowing. I think my spirituality is based on what I know and believe. So I don't think the concept of heaven and hell and afterlife. No, I just think that there is our soul and body. Something happens when that last breath, and I would be a fool to say that I would kind of know and understand what happens after that. You know, we can all, but what I do like is that, you know, these books do give people who like, I've known a few people that have had kind of traumatic upbringings and troubled life, and it's put them on the straight and narrow. So if that belief system gives them the will to kind of get their things in order, then yeah. But me, I have no idea, man. Like, I'm just, I feel like my body and my mind and my spirit are awake and opening my eyes to, you know, not the saying that these stories are allegorical, but they all come from somewhere. You know, the story of Jesus, you can see the story of that in the Egypt with Kemet and Thoth and everything kind of, at some point in time, they all kind of overlap each other. You know, even biblical times with the Egyptian times and the Mayan times, and they were all seeing and documenting similar things in their time. And yeah, man, I would be a fool to give the knowledge of us being who we are for the hundreds of thousands of years to literature that has been around for the least amount of time. There's a whole kind of years of knowledge, years of spirituality, years of documented things that, you know, you can get your answers and interpretate them in your life, you know?
Yeah, and I guess this is one of the things that I'm quite interested in, and that is faced with so many different ideas and worldviews and religions and faiths and claims and stuff like that. Like, what is a framework by which we can evaluate which of these things are true, right? Which of these things are worthwhile looking into and examining? Because it's also the case that they're all saying they're saying different things, right? So yeah, there's some overlaps. Then they all try to try to get to the bottom of the reason why we exist. They'll try to get to the bottom of, is there a spiritual world beyond this real world? They'll try to get to the bottom of who we are, what happens after we die, are we fulfilling our potential, where are we going, where do we come from? But then, they do make distinct and different claims, especially some of the big traditional religions, right?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with some of the other things that you mentioned, maybe some of the more ancient ones, but certainly, over the last 3,000 or 4,000 years, you had sort of Judaism, Christianity, Islam, but they've made different claims, right? So, yeah, then to one extent, they're seeking human flourishing, but on the other hand, they're saying this is actually quite distinct, different things. They're saying, especially when it comes to the person of Jesus, right? They're saying who he was and what he came to do. In different, like Christianity would see him as God, someone who became a man, who lived a life of perfection, never sinning, but ultimately dying for us on the cross. I mean,
a lot of these religions, they have prophets, and the prophets are channeling what they know from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So
how do we, I guess my question, what's the framework by which we can evaluate these things and say, okay, well, these ones, this is actually the one that is the most trustworthy, and these other ones, because they make contradictory claims, they have to therefore be dismissed, or is there a framework like that, do you think?
I don't think there's one particular framework, because I think different parts of the globe they were having different experiences, whether it's due to time, location, the technology that was around, the spirituality that was around at the time, the means that they used to get the information, whether it would be psychedelics, whether it be through prophets, whether it be through meditation, whether it be through shamanism, whether it be through druids, there was a whole. There's not one source way to get the answer. I think we just have to be open in knowing that there's going to be answers in everything,
Right. And maybe to some extent there are, right? But when they convalesce around a similar or specific similar topic, and the reason I brought up Christianity, Judaism, and Islam is that they all seem to convalesce around one type of God, or one God, right? The Creator. And then they're speaking of us as human beings, as people who are fallen human beings, and then that's the problem. And then the question is, how can we get right with God again, right? And that's the thematic, right? That's the context. But then they approach it from different perspectives, right? In Judaism, they're still waiting for a savior, someone who will come and rescue us, someone who will put this world to right, someone who will bring peace everlasting, someone who will bring back the promises or establish the promises that the God has made to the Jewish people. Like I said, Christianity has said, look, this person has come already. We've seen him, we have experienced that he's died on the cross, it's worth putting our trust and belief in it. And then Islam said, no, he was just a prophet. He was just a prophet, he was just a human being. Muhammad was the last one. But there is no such thing as there's no like someone we need to put our trust into. There's just Allah, and we'll never know, and we will have to kind of fall on His mercy one day, and He will weigh us based on our good deeds or bad deeds and things like that, right? But they'll kind of talk about the same, almost like the idea of a God that they're trying to understand is similar, or they claim to be the same, and so they're trying to come from the same starting point to draw those conclusions, right? And so I'm saying, is it worth to sort of say, look, those are three major religions, 90-something% of humanity is falling into one of these three categories. Is it worth focusing on one of those three? Because they seem to have the most to say, they're bringing out the most arguments, the most evidences, the most claims that are worth evaluating. What do you think?
I mean, I don't follow any of them, so what I would say is like, it, all the answers are within you, you know, um, and you have to, like I said, if I me feeling and knowing what I see and understand in terms of there's so many systems across the globe which aren't these three things, which pre-existed those three forms, um, you know, and none are identical, but all say similar things. You know, all are kind of expressive through music and dance. Some are expressive through um, taking psychedelics. Some are um, believing that the nature is it's God, you know, and praying to nature. Some have focus on masks. So I would be a fool. Me, I think I would be a fool to say that I know, because you know, I followed Christianity and it never really connected with me in terms of, you know, everyone kind of makes God singular in their own in their image, which people can identify with. You know, so the European has uh, Jesus, but he was never a European. All the paintings you see, you know, Islam. I don't know if they believe in Jesus, but even Jesus looks and looks like them and identifies with them. Like I can't, me personally, I can't identify with religions that were used to enslave kind of ancestors. So I can't identify what, like, once you get worldly knowledge, like it's hard for me to identify with that when I know like it was used for the negative and the positive, you know. It was used to kind of, so what were these people doing before Christianity came along? They had their tribal beliefs. So Nigeria, it has Igbo, it has Yoruba, it has, you know, there's a lot of secret societies in Africa that have their traditions and beliefs, but now they are intertwined with Islam and they are intertwined with Christianity. So I don't know. You know, this interview is probably very frustrating for you because I can't stand on an answer because, like I said, I understand that I don't have the answers.
Right.
And I'm just feeling my way through, reading, meditating, looking at history, reading up on things. You know, that's the true nature of finding your spirituality, you know?
Yeah.
Sitting here, listening to the trees, listening to silence, or, you know,
Yeah.
that's one way of me trying to connect with
Yeah.
God.
Fair. And I guess where maybe I was going with that is that I guess do we think there is an external reality that is discoverable, or as you say, that truth is within us, right? Because the reason I'm asking you this is that think about myself, right? I don't know if I can trust myself to find truth within me, because I know my fantasies and my ideas have often been proven incorrect, wrong. As much as I thought something was true or something I felt really strongly about, later proved out to be actually not so true at all, or falling apart, right? So that's sort of a life lesson, right, where I have to sort of submit myself and understand, okay, if there's something out there that is real, how do I go about understanding and learning about it, and then evaluating it, and then saying yes, that is correct or not, right? And so, and I guess I'm sharing this because to me that was like a journey of sort of saying, look, well, if God is out there and if He's a creator who has created all of this stuff, including us, could I know Him not just by looking inside, but looking out there?
You know
And
Him when you're looking in the mirror.
well, if I'm looking in a mirror, I see myself, but I see a fallen person, a person who has gotten many things wrong, and
Yeah.
who, left to his own devices, will, potentially just look to do things that please me the most, right? Things that I feel comfortable with. I will not want to put myself in an uncomfortable position, right? But when I do things, for example, when I do consider things about the Bible, and it tells me I should love my neighbor, and I should love even my enemy, I should abhor things like slavery. I should look to justice, and I should help the stranger and all that stuff. That makes me feel very uncomfortable. But if it's coming from someone who is claiming to be God and who has created us with that purpose, I have to stop and think, okay, well, if I'm made for those things and I'm not fulfilling them, that I'm not fulfilling my potential. Not only that, but there's a potential consequences of me going my own way and not going the right way. And so that's the troubling point for me. That's the fear for me, that if I go my own way, it might feel good for a while. It might good feel because I'll obviously do things that please me, but in the long run, I'm gonna get myself into a place of, first of all, in this life, things that are not going to be well for me, but also if there is a next life, and if that life is being determined by the same creator who told me how I should live, and I kept failing him and falling below that standard, then I shouldn't be surprised if I end up in a place I don't want to end up in, right? So I think that to me was more of a kind of the consideration of like, is there external reality? And if so, am I willing to consider it? Am I willing to submit myself to it? If I'm honest with myself.
Yeah. I think understanding a little bit of quantum mechanics will give you for me, it altered the way that I view this existence, because when things in the quantum, when things aren't being observed, they react differently to when they're being observed. So who says that your way is the incorrect way? Maybe you need to just figure some stuff out. Maybe you need to read. Maybe you need to read up on a bit of science. Maybe you need to read up on different religious sects. Maybe you need to read up on the spiritual aspect of things. Maybe you need to read up on the psychedelic side of things. Maybe the dimensional side of things. Because all these things are in all of the books. Maybe look into the extraterrestrial type of things. Because whatever we think reality is definitely it isn't. And like we said earlier in this conversation, once you realize that you don't know as much as you think you know, and humble yourself to, okay, well, let me at least broaden my understanding of things that I haven't even fathomed of trying to understand before. It's where you'll get your answers and you'll get your downloads. Because for me, I don't think these strict religions are the answer. I think these religions are put to control masses of people into a one-way system, one ways of thinking, one ways of thought. And this earth, this universe, isn't singular, it's vast. It's compromised of many things functioning. You know, it's as vast outward as it is vast inward within ourselves, you know. So I think it would be, especially if you're out asking questions, maybe you're asking the wrong question. Have you ever
Maybe.
thought that?
Perhaps,
Yeah,
yeah. That's
maybe,
always
yeah,
starting with.
maybe you're asking the wrong things. Maybe you're expecting the answer from the wrong questions.
Maybe,
So
maybe,
maybe you
yeah,
have to sit, meditate, read.
yeah. And that's why I started with a question about a framework, right? Because I agree with all of the things you said, in the sense that, if we it can be overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
But even I would argue, right, even outside of the three major religions, or whatever the organized religion is, even let's say some of these other ideas and thoughts that you have suggested, I mean, they're not beyond being used to control people, right? How many cults and how many different philosophies have gone out there that has just been used to control people, right? And so size doesn't necessarily promise us, or uniqueness, or specific, people group. It doesn't necessarily promise us that they're going to be safe for us, or even right for us. And so to me, kind of like, so how do we not get ourselves deceived? How do we not get ourselves into sort of living in a lie, effectively, right? And so yeah, it may not be those. Maybe I agree with you. Those religions often have been and continue to be used for nefarious purposes, but that's like I said, that's true of everything. Anyone can use anything to get a one over someone else, right?
Yeah.
But how do we then, as people who are trying to live our life, right? How do we get to the truth? So how do we protect ourselves, and how do we get to the point where we can sort of stand on something and say, no, actually, I'm pretty convinced of this. Here's my reasons for that. And so, until something else comes along, until some other information comes along, or something changes my mind there, that is what I'm putting my weight on. That's what I put my trust on, right? And again, for me, that was a combination of personal experiences, but also external reality about the world that I see, right? So my background is a bit of science. That's what I kind of studied, right? And I think if I look at the universe, and if I look at the macro as well as the micro,
Yeah.
I see such complexity. I see design. I see intelligence in there,
Well,
right?
it starts from stuff that's very simple,
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, starts with something very, like, exactly.
and it
You talked
doesn't
about
matter how
quantum.
vast you go,
Yeah,
how
yeah,
big you go and make things
yeah,
look small. It looks similar to the leaf,
yeah.
the fruit.
It's so often called the fractal nature of universe, right? It's
That's it.
exactly as you said. You zoom out, you see patterns, and those patterns are the same at billions of light years as they are in a leaf, which is centimeters. And but even then, there's other things, like such as DNA, how wonderful that idea of a DNA as a source of information for life is, and we find it in every piece of life. Or
Yeah.
when we look at how universe operates with the laws of gravity, the laws of nuclear forces, electricity, and other things, that are very, very finely tuned things that could never have been different for this life. This life can only exist with these very specific parameters. And to me, I take that. I take my own experiences that I had in life, and as a Christian, I take what the Bible describes of what the eyewitnesses have seen, and what they've described, and what Jesus said in His words. I take those three things, and I said, well, that's my framework is evidential in nature, and experiential in nature, and observational in nature, and so those things find their answers in Christianity as the most likely, the most truthful, the most answering type of a religion.
But what do your senses tell you?
The same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. As in, unless I misunderstood your question. Like, what would, like, give me a little bit more.
No, it's as can be as simple or as
Yeah.
complex as you want to
Yeah.
make it.
Yeah.
What because part of having spiritual understanding is trusting all
Right.
of your senses,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, not just what you see, what you hear, what you taste, but what you feel, what your
Yeah.
heart says, what your gut says,
Yeah.
what your intuition tells you,
Yeah.
you know, because it's all connected. We're all connected.
True.
It won't lie to you. The lies come in when we convince ourselves, no, we can't be. Doesn't make sense. This
Yeah.
whole world don't make no sense if you think about it. How can
Yeah.
there be the same amount of information in that leaf as there in
Yeah.
me, as
Yeah.
there in space, as there in the
Yeah.
sun, as there space in the, you know,
Yeah.
darkness is moving faster than light. They can't.
Yeah.
You can go insane thinking about this kind of stuff, you know.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, man. I'm trying to learn as much as I can, just to be humble. And
Yeah.
I understand that I'm not gonna. I'll get some answers from the books. I'll get some answers from the religions. I'll get some answers. You'll get a lot of answers from science. You'll get a lot of answers from experience. You'll get a lot of answers from what your heart tells you, what you feel, what you dream. You know. It's all as important as the books, the knowledge, you know, because we all share that knowledge. We are all kind of fractal beings of the same consciousness, you know. So we know the answers, but we just have to listen to what our hearts and what our guts and what our intuition and we have to trust those parts of our humanity again, because you know they the world it's stifled for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our bodies are filled with the hard metals for a reason. They poison the food there's a reason for that. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, man. I'm just on a journey, man. Like I sound like I know a lot, but I know very little. And
It's fair.
you know, I
Yeah.
don't know much, but I know that what I know and experience is true. You know. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much
Yeah. Thank you,
for
man.
your thoughts, and yeah, I agree. We're both on a journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We would be kidding ourselves if we were sort of we landed or anything like that. But no, I love these conversations. Like I said, one of my I really only have two reasons why I do this. One is to get people to start thinking about these big important things in life, because I think they're worthwhile grappling with. Even if the answer right now could be, oh, I really don't know, but like, okay, think about why you don't know and what's going to get you to the position of knowledge. That's why I'm big on this sort of think about the framework, what is true, what is not true, how you're going to get to understand what is true. Don't give up.
Yeah.
It's worth pursuing. That's point number one. Point number two is, as a Christian, right, I want to use this opportunity to sort of say, well, here's what it was like for me, what convinced me, what got me to my position of certainty. I think that was a transformative thing for me in my life, and I want to at the very least, share it
Share it. Yeah.
and allow others to sort of look. If you did not know about this, well, allow me to at least share this part of it, and maybe you can take a look at that as well and think about it for yourself. Yeah, because it changed my life completely. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Just keep asking the right questions and the wrong questions, and you'll get there. You know.
It's fair.
That's what I'm trying to do, man. I admit that I don't know a lot, but speaking to people may think that I know a lot, but I don't. I'm very humble, you know. I know what I feel, and if I know, at least if I go with my gut, most of the times out of 10, I'll be guided through the right way, you know, because it's something communicating with me, you know.
Yeah.
It's the same as you sitting and praying, you know. These are words that you're putting together and mantras that you're putting together. Your hands are together, you know. You completing the circuit. You're at peace. You're saying, you know, you're projecting love into the world, you know. You're in church and the music sounds a certain way, it has a certain vibration, you know. These things have been around before. We are made of this. We are made of, you know. So, however it is interpreted, you know, I always receive people's prayers well. I always receive people's knowledge of self well. You know, I always converse with my Muslim brothers, people who believe in Christ. You know, I never shun or send it away because, you know, I know when people come and speak to you, it's coming a lot of the time from a place of love or a place of just wanting better for people. But also it starts with them, they wanting better for themselves. So, you know, yeah, I'm just trying to, at the moment, balance and weigh up things that make no sense to me. So that's why I came on the walk today, and to have this conversation. Yeah, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks
Yeah,
very
man.
much again. Yeah.
No worries, man.